This episode of On the Limb with Nature's Voice Game Calls is brought to you by Will Jewelry and Loan. When you need cash and you need it fast, check out Will Jewelry and Loan. Come on in with your jewelry, firearms, electronics, tools, lawn equipment, dirt bikes, side-by-sides, and even four-wheelers. They will beat any competitor's loan amount, and that's a fact. Will Jewelry and Loan guarantees faster and more cash for your loan than any other company in the area. They have your cash you need fast. Check them out today on their Facebook page or give them a call at 304-768-5101. Stop in and talk with them at 5523 McCorkle Avenue, Southwest, South Charleston, West Virginia. Will Jewelry and Loan, 304-768-5101. Folks, I'm excited tonight. Welcome to another episode of On the Limb Podcast with Nature's Voice Game Calls. You know one reason why I'm excited?
Why are you excited, Mike?
Because it's fall.
It is fall.
And it's hunting season,
Oh,
baby.
love it. Love it.
It is hunting season.
That's right.
And you can also tell Dave is rusty.
Yeah, Dave's a little rusty, but it's okay.
That's okay. Hey, just like my shotgun, it's all right. It still works.
We'll put a little bit of WD-40 on them old bones, Dave. We'll get you back to normal.
Put a
Thanks,
little,
Dan.
put a little breakthrough clean on there. You'll be all right.
Yeah, that's right. Oh,
Or
man.
hops, whatever you want to use.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know we used to use that back in the day, man.
I used to use this green stuff.
I
Stuff
know-
in a green can.
I know this is bad, but I used to sniff that stuff just because I love the smell of it.
Oh, wow. That makes sense.
Yeah. And Dad's like, why you always cleaning your guns?
There ain't much that smells better than a good CLP.
Oh, man. That's true.
Oh,
That is true.
goodness.
You know, one thing I like better is the smell of two-cycle, like a dirt bike, two-cycle
Oh,
dirt bike.
yeah,
I love that smell, too.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead, guys.
Isn't it crazy though? I mean, like some of the smells like that, you just like those smells. I mean, it's something that,
weird.
yeah. All right, we won't go there, but anyways. So this is, it's almost Halloween. Great episode lined up for you this evening with Tara and Nancy from Crime Off of the Grid podcast. I can't even remember. I think it was like one of the podcasts, community things that we got hooked up in through that, and then I reached out to them, and I was like, we need to do a Halloween episode. So we've been working on this for a while. Been in the works now for a couple months, so... These ladies have over 60 years of combined service with the National Park Systems.
Awesome.
And, we'll hear more about that here in a minute. But not only is this our Halloween episode, but, October's just flying by. I mean, it just seems like it's going by fast.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're a little less than a month away from Election Day.
That's
Yep,
crazy.
we are.
I mean, this is all the hype and all the stuff, and you get caught up in that, and you're like, bam, it's here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's almost like as soon as summer's over, man, it's like time just hits the gas pedal.
Yeah.
Christmas is here. Boom.
Yeah.
Done.
And
You know?
and I was like, my kids were like, Dad, we don't go to school today. And I'm like, why? And they're like, it's Columbus Day. And I'm like, I have never missed a Columbus Day. I'm like, I've always known when Columbus Day was.
Yeah.
Because that was one of my favorite things in school. I
Yeah.
love history.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love learning about that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
I'm surprised they haven't canceled Columbus Day yet.
well,
honestly.
it's actually called Indigenous People Day, I think, now.
Oh, it's not
right.
Columbus Day?
Yep,
I
it
think
is.
they've actually changed the name of it.
Oh, poor Columbus.
Yeah. They say he didn't really do anything.
Oh.
That's what they say.
Okay.
But, another good thing about the Columbus Day here in America
right.
is that it's Thanksgiving in Canada.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
They have a Thanksgiving?
they have a Thanksgiving.
That's cool.
So we were on
Yeah.
the Hunts on Outfitting podcast last night. They brought us in as a guest.
Yes.
And we were talking about the Game Call Company. We was talking about the podcast. And I didn't even think to wish them happy Thanksgiving. I got off and I
man.
was like, man, I forgot all about that. So
I can't believe
happy
you did that.
Thanksgiving to the Canadians.
Happy Thanksgiving, Canadians.
We have a lot
There
of
you go.
Canadian listeners, so that's why I'm saying that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, we enjoy them listening, and they've got some beautiful, beautiful land, and their territory, hunting wise and just recreational, is outrageously awesome.
So Canadian Thanksgiving, do you have like a pike for the Thanksgiving dinner?
I don't know what they eat really for that.
Smallmouth, maybe.
What if they eat Canada gooses?
Canadian goose.
Honestly, could.
That's funny.
Oh man! Hey, look, listen, guys. Not to get too far off subject, we got a lot of exciting things coming up for us, man. Not only Halloween's coming up, deer season's in, but archery's in.
Yes.
Gun season's coming right around the corner, which brings Thanksgiving to us. So
That's right.
also, we got the West Virginia Hunting and Fishing Show at the Coliseum and Convention Center coming up January 24th through the 26th. It's an absolute great time. You don't want to miss it.
No,
and if you're an outdoor business or vendor of sorts and you want to be there, you can reach them at the main office at 304-767-4464. 4466, I'm sorry. So we also, our 4th Whitetail Weekly episode is out. So be sure to check that out. Caleb hits on the pre-rut in segment 5 of Whitetail Weekly. People are starting to engage and enjoy these on our YouTube. So be sure to head over to our Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts for all the past and present episodes. Also, don't forget to use Podcast 10 at checkout with outdoor-pro-shop.com for your 10% off your order. On the limb at checkout with ApparitionSense.com for 20% off the entire order. And Podcast 15 with nature'svoicegamecalls.com to get 15% off your entire order. Thanks for all our partners for these great discounts that we're offering you guys for listening to us.
Yeah. So one thing I was going to mention there about our Whitetail Weekly, it's going to be airing soon. I'm going to try to get that out by tomorrow. If not, we're going to have another episode out by tomorrow. So
Okay.
It'll either be an episode, which will be 123, or it'll be the Whitetail Weekly segment. We've been trying to do the Whitetail Weekly segments on Saturday, but Caleb is really busy, so it gets kind of a little backed up, and he's got 4 of them recorded, but we're transferring.
I'm sure the woods are
the
just
data.
calling his name is the problem.
Oh yeah, he's been hunting a lot too, so he's gotten some really good footage. He got some really good footage the other day of a buck that came in with our grunt call. So
nice.
That's gonna be awesome. We'll use that for a little bit of advertising, but yeah, I mean, rifle season's getting ready to come in, man. We was talking last night to Ken and them on the podcast. That's like, he was asking us what was our favorite hunting season or what species we like to hunt, and I was like, it's got to be deer for me.
Oh yeah, me too.
I love hunting turkey. I love spring. I love being out there. I love hearing that gobbler crack off in the morning when you first make that tree call or whatever, that fly down cackle. But man, it's just like deer season is like the Christmas Eve for me and Christmas Day.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I thought a lot of that, I think, Mike's because of the camaraderie you get with it.
It is, yes.
Turkey season, you might hunt with one other person.
Deer
season, you can have 1 to 40 people at deer camp.
Right.
So I think that's why it's so special.
Now I think that's basically like I know we're a little southern, but we're a lot northern compared to like North Carolina, South Carolina, and stuff like that. Georgia, down south, I think they actually have like turkey camps, like we have deer camps.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a little different down there, and probably out west a little bit too. But anyways, let's get on to our guests. So we're going to hear some crazy stories, maybe some calls, encounters from Crime Off of the Grid podcast ladies this evening. So like I said, they have served our great national parks all over the country. So please welcome with me Tara and Nancy from the Crime Off of the Grid podcast. How you guys doing this evening?
We're doing great.
Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for joining us.
I didn't think we were going to get hooked up there when we first called because we couldn't merge, and we didn't know that you couldn't merge a merged call.
Yeah. I'm like, well, I guess you can't triple stamp a double stamp either.
No,
So.
you can't.
That's right. You can't triple stamp a double stamp.
Yep. So we just found something new out. Anyway.
Yeah.
But so
intern.
yeah. So Tara, we'll start off with you first. Tell us a little bit about your extensive background in law enforcement for the National Park System.
Well, I mean, originally, yes, I'm from Tennessee, so I started out in college, working for Tennessee State Parks and then Tennessee Valley Authority. And so I thought I got to be a park ranger. Eventually made my way to Yellowstone National Park. Who would have thought? I had never been west of the Mississippi River
That's awesome.
before.
Oh, wow.
And so I worked there over 30 years. I met my husband, who's also a park ranger in Yellowstone, but we're both law enforcement park rangers. I was more of a front country, meaning, responding to I did road patrol and respond to incidents, where the people were, where my husband was backcountry. So I did that for a number of years. And when you work for the National Park Service, rangers they wear a lot of hats.
Yeah.
And the hats I wore, I was also a park medic, and I ended up working with the victims of crime a lot. And so I ended up starting a victim assistance program. And the last 5 years of my career, so that would, in addition to the 30-something I did in Yellowstone, so I'm kind of old here, I worked for the Park Service wide. I was able to create a victim assistance program for the whole National Park Service. So I really just worked only with victims of violent crime.
Yeah.
Yes, we have violent crime in the national parks.
Oh yeah,
and
for
that's
sure.
what I did the last 5 years.
Wow.
It's crazy
So now
because
we did a podcast.
yeah, it's nuts because a lot of people don't think of the actual crimes and the things that go on in these national parks. And from what we just talked there when we first met, I mean, you guys have really encountered some crazy things.
Yeah, because any type of crime you have in your town or city, you're going to have in a national park because there's people.
Yeah.
Sure.
And just wherever there's people, so similar to other communities, the majority of the crimes against people we see, they're actually committed by someone known to them. Like we kind of say, hey, you bring your offender with you on vacation a lot of the times,
Mm-hmm.
And, we have same kind of things in any city. We have assaults, sexual assaults, homicides, kidnapping, domestic violence, including serious bodily injury and occasional stranger assaults. But
Yeah.
and we also deal with resource crime like poaching and
Mm-hmm.
collecting
Sure.
or damaging natural resources.
Now, do you think that a lot of these happen because of the vast area? You think they can get? Do you think that they feel that they can get away with it more so out there because it's such a vast area of open space?
Well, it depends on the crime. I think some people,
Sure.
I think some people commit their crimes where they live, like domestic violence, for example, and they just continue it when they get to the park. But then
Yeah.
some cases, yes, I think there are some parks where, I don't know what Nancy's going to talk about, but parks are more likely to have bodies dumped. And what better place to get away with something like that?
Oh yeah.
Blue Ridge Parkway comes to mind. There's been more than one occasion where a body's been dumped.
Sure.
So maybe they don't commit the crime in the park, but they commit parts of it in a park.
All right. Well, that leads us into you, Nancy. So
Yeah.
Okay.
tell us a little bit about your background.
Karen and I have worked together for a long time. We're both in Yellowstone at the same time in different sub-districts, but nonetheless, we got to see each other once in a while and work together. My career was 32 years, and I spent 19 of those years in Yellowstone National Park, and that's
Man.
where I met my husband. We actually met on a forest fire in Grangeville, Idaho. And so that's one of the hats that I wore, was a wildland firefighter. And then lived in Yellowstone for 19 years, and then we moved to South Dakota, and I became a supervisory park ranger at Mount Rushmore. And I worked there for 3 years. And then I jumped ship. I went to the United States Forest Service, and I was a patrol captain there. And I worked there for almost 8 years. And my area of supervision was from the east entrance to Yellowstone National Park so that would be in Wyoming, Cody, Wyoming, all the way over halfway across the state of South Dakota to up here, and then down through Nebraska. So I had employees in all of those areas for the National Forest Service. And then after 8 years there, I jumped back to the Park Service, and I retired as the chief ranger to Jewel Cave National Monument.
Oh, awesome.
Oh, that's cool.
Congratulations on your
That's
retirement. Both
so,
of
I mean,
you.
that's a large area of coverage.
Yeah,
It was
is.
there's a lot of windshield time involved with that Forest Service job.
Yeah, it sounds like it for sure. Wow.
Yeah.
And is that because there's just not enough enough coverage, or I mean, is that just because you was in charge of that whole area, but you had other people under you?
I had other people under me. I had 8 officers, but each one of them, each forest or grassland that I supervised, I had at least 2 officers on each one of those.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Most of it has to do with you guys pairing up in partners too. You never want to go out on a call or anything without yourself.
For the Forest Service, a lot of it was a single.
Oh, was
Yeah.
okay.
They're just out there on their own. If we did some type of like in the summertime here in the Black Hills, we have a lot of lakes in the area, and so we would pair up with 2 people and go out and take care of some things.
Well, I'd say like with the Forestry Service too, you're always with a different agency working alongside them too, like how you and your husband met on the fire line.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
pretty good.
we did work a lot with other agencies in the area.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So good
Yeah.
deal. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about, me and Tara had talked about this on the phone, and just briefly, but some of the laws on federal property when it comes to hunting that people may or may not know. One of them is about shed hunting. So tell us a little bit about how that pertains to taking things from federal lands.
Well, gathering shed antlers, it's a popular and lucrative activity because antlers are used for a wide variety of purposes. For thousands of years, humans have used shed antlers as raw materials for making tools, making buttons, knife handles, and that type of things that they use the antler for. But other people use it for decor, and that can become very expensive if you've ever seen an antler chandelier or lamps or, furniture. So that's more costly, for people to purchase. So it's pretty lucrative. And you see antlers in pet stores. They're used as chew toys for dogs, for dog treats. So there's, like I said, there's a wide variety of uses for them. Some antlers are actually sent overseas, and they're used in food supplements and apparently even aphrodisiacs, is what I have learned.
Wow.
Not that you have experience with that, though, right, Nancy?
No experience with that. But the lucrative part of collecting antlers is you sell them by the pound, and you get paid by the pound. So going in and looking at the rate of antlers, this is about a month ago, and this is just elk antlers. We didn't do anything with deer antlers, but so a grade A elk antler, which in my mind I consider it as furniture grade antler, is $16.75 a pound. And
wow.
Yeah, grade B antler, and that'd be like your raghorn antler, a smaller 3 or 4 point, that would be $11.20 a pound. And then grade C antlers are $5 a pound. And those are the ones that maybe have sat out there a few years, and they're kind of start to turn white and things like that. So it's
we're going to talk about the National Park Service only for a second, because federal land is not all the same.
Right.
And the mission of the National Park Service is to, in theory, to preserve unimpaired the natural and cultural resources and values of the National Park Service, or system for the enjoyment, education, inspiration of this and future generations. That's literally the mission. And there really are just a few places on this earth where nature is left unimpaired and preserved, and not all land management agencies have that same mission, like the U.S. Forest Service, where it's multi-use agency,
Right.
and they lie within the Department of Agriculture and the Park Services and the Department of Interior, but they don't have the same regulations with regard to removing natural resources like the Park Service. So think hunting, timber harvesting, mushroom collecting, and all those things. But it's important to protect wildlife within the Park Service, in these natural environments, to protect wildlife at a time of year when resources are scarce and energy is really precious.
Yeah.
And spring around here in the Rocky Mountain West is really hard on wildlife for the ones that actually survive the harsh winters. So collecting even fallen antlers and horns have a really big negative impact on wild animals.
Yeah, especially
as the act of foraging. Yeah, it puts them at risk of increased stress.
Yeah, your small
So
game and stuff.
the law that we go by is 36 CFR 2.1, and it's the preservation of natural, cultural, archaeological resources. So Title 36 contains the codified law, which means it's signed into law.
Okay.
And the U.S. federal laws and regulations pertaining to national parks, forests, landmarks, monuments, memorials, anything that's federally owned, they're just things that are prohibited. So in the Park Service, like Tara said, Forest Service is a little different, but in the Park Service, possessing, destroying, injuring, defacing, removing, digging, or disturbing from its natural state, that is illegal to do in the Park Service.
Yeah.
So living or dead wildlife or fish or parts or products thereof, such as antlers or nests. So you can't remove any of that natural or cultural resource. We even, in the Park Service, it even goes as far as wildflowers, rocks, arrowheads, things like that. So, it's the Park Service is pretty strict that you can't do anything as far as removal. But let me explain.
That obviously goes with foraging, so you couldn't take mushrooms and such.
You can for personal
Correct.
use, like if I want to if I want to get a bucket of huckleberries for my own, personal use, I can do that. But if I'm going to take huckleberries and sell them, that's different.
Okay, I got you.
And that's how the Forest Service works too. You do not need a permit to collect antlers or berries or rocks or anything like that, as long as it's for your own use. But once you start collecting antlers and then you start making furniture and selling it, you just brought yourself into a different category.
Oh yeah.
So that is required to have a permit. And even though the Forest Service goes off of 36 CFR, also they have a thing called a supervisory. What am I trying to say, Tara? A special order from the forest supervisor, and he can create the order so that it allows you to collect antlers. It allows you to hunt with a permit. It allows you to fish and things like that.
Okay.
So it's a special use permit, and each forest is different. So, you just need to make sure that you check with your local area if you want to go out and do these things. Like if you guys come out, to the Midwest or to the West, it's just best to stop at their offices and say, what are the do's and don'ts?
Yeah.
Keep, people out of trouble.
I think it's great to be informed anyways. I mean,
yeah.
A lot more places are getting, national and federal parks and lands. It seems like here we just recently had the New River Gorge National Park. So it just became a national park. We've had the New River Gorge recreation area.
Yeah, that's correct. Yep.
Forever, but it just became a national area. So, I mean, there's a lot of things there that you can't do now that you used to be able to do. So it's kind of crazy.
Sure.
Yeah, it's good to be informed.
Yeah. So Dave, you had a question?
Oh, I did have a question, and then we'll probably take a short break here soon. So my question, kind of, when you all were going through kind of like your history and your background and that kind of thing, I've got some daughters that could potentially be interested in a career.
I thought you were going to say criminals.
Like that. Yeah, they're definitely interested in criminals. All boys are criminals to me. I just want to say that.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, they're all criminals. No, but just like the steps to take. If a degree is required, kind of like after the degree, that kind of thing, to get going in that direction.
Well, it's changed a little bit here recently, and there's really a really good emphasis or trying to heavily recruit a little bit more women as rangers. And we're only talking about law enforcement rangers. I don't know,
Right.
About if there's another interest or not, but national park rangers. And the steps are a little bit different. How Nancy and I both did it. We had to pay to go to some seasonal law enforcement academy, and then eventually get hired. We had to go through some crazy steps, and it's not like that anymore. But I would suggest somebody who is college age or early 20s. No, you don't have to have a degree, but it's recommended. But in the meantime, get other things, other add-ons, like get your EMT, go get your wildfire red card and get that training, and do these other things to make you more competitive, because now it is a little bit easier to then we had to jump through a bunch of silly hoops. And so now
Gotcha.
they
Yeah.
don't have as many hoops. But I would say the more things that a person, wanting to work for the National Park Service as a park ranger, the more things you can, stick on your belt, certifications, that kind of thing, would make you highly more valuable as somebody to recruit.
Yeah, the certifications.
And seriously, I would love for anybody to reach out to us, and we could have a conversation with them, because we
Absolutely.
love to help people,
Yeah.
good people to get into the Park Service.
That's great.
Awesome.
All right, so let's take a break real quick, and we'll be right back with Crime Off of the Grid. This episode of On the Limb with Nature's Voice Game Calls is brought to you by Outdoor Pro Shop, LLC. Outdoor Pro Shop is a family-owned and operated firearms dealer and sporting goods retailer. They have pay-over-time options, a rewards program, and customer service satisfaction that is unmatched. They might not be the biggest, but they strive to be the best. Contact them today at 240-360-1298 or visit them on the web at www.outdoor-pro-shop.com. That's Outdoor Pro Shop, 240-360-1298. All right, guys, we're back with Crime Off the Grid podcast, Tara and Nancy. So, Dan.
Before we get back into it fully, let's go ahead and do our salute for this evening.
Yeah, because we get interesting when it starts talking about this stuff. I love talking about this stuff.
It is. It's very interesting. I mean, especially what we got coming up to talk about, man. It's some interesting stuff. I'm very interested in. So didn't know about it, to be honest with you. But so tonight, our salute to valor goes out to Gil Esparza. She's from San Antonio, Texas, home of the Texas Rio. If you didn't know that, that's get out to Texas and kill you a Texas Rio.
There you go.
So 15 years active duty from 1978 to 1993 in Norfolk, Virginia, Naval Amphibious Base. Medically retired during the Gulf War, served on 4 at-sea commands, 3 tours in Southeast Asia, Gulf War veteran, in Beirut, Lebanon, Gulf of Sidra, South Africa, Saudi Arabia. Was awarded the Navy Expeditionary Medal, Meritorious Service Unit Commendation, Combat Action, Sea Service Deployment with 3 oak leaf clusters. It was such an honor for her to serve. So we want to thank Gil Esparza for her service and commitment to the country.
Yes, thank you for your service. God bless you.
Awesome.
And thank you, ladies, for your service as well.
Thank you.
I think it's just it's a great thing. Some people don't look at what you all done as a service, but it's all
Absolutely.
part of our law enforcement and public safety, and it's a service to our country.
Absolutely.
To protect the
Appreciate that.
beauties of what we can enjoy that God has given us. So we sure appreciate that. Because we love the outdoors.
Yeah.
I mean, we enjoy the outdoors all the time. So
Well, you live in a beautiful place.
we do. Our state is very beautiful. Right now is one of the beautifulest times of the year, in my opinion, with the trees and stuff. The drought has really had effect on some of the trees and how they've turned. But I didn't know it until I was
Everywhere.
listening to one of the guys in the New River Gorge National Park talking about trees that actually turn before their time anyways, but it just kind of sped up the process this year because of the drought. So there are a lot of trees in West Virginia that drop their leaves early because it's almost like it's starving for nutrients. So it drops those leaves early to kind of help it live through what it's getting ready to go through. So it's kind of crazy. But.
Yeah.
So we talked about the shed hunting there on federal lands. So some of the things that I was just looking up when it pertained to hunting or the outdoors, Mount Rainier National Park, hunting and other use of firearms are not prohibited there in that park at all.
No, on the national parks, firearms are allowed in any national park now. That happened after 2008.
Oh,
I'm not sure
okay.
exactly what year that was. So firearms are allowed. Well, I mean, you can't and you can't brandish it.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
you can carry.
Okay.
And I guess that's anywhere, but you can carry anywhere unless there's some special regulations, like certain buildings, if there's privately owned
Right.
buildings within a national park, or
Makes sense.
some government buildings. But nope, they're allowed in every single national park.
Now, does that have to go with the reciprocatory for that state if you have concealed carry, or is it just because it's national park?
Yeah, you know what? In theory, at the time that they made this ruling, it was supposed to be with whatever the laws were in your state. But to be honest with you, I'm confused. Maybe Nancy knows. Is it your state or is it the state in which the park is? Because we've
okay.
never even paid any attention to it, because almost everything is open carry anyway. I mean, I
Right.
always worked in Wyoming, and you could carry a bazooka around
Yeah,
town.
yeah.
if you
Wyoming's
wanted to.
pretty. Yeah, they're. Yeah.
So, and I think most states are getting to where open carry is just allowed everywhere. So sorry, but I just haven't paid attention.
No,
to that.
I'm hoping that more
I
states
think
go
as
that
long
way.
as the state allows open carry, it doesn't matter where you're from.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is
Yeah.
the way I've always interpreted it, and I've
Yeah.
never had any issues out of it, to be honest.
Yeah, and Tara's right. If there's a sign or something on most visitor centers or any government building, you're not allowed to carry inside the building, but you can
True.
carry inside the park.
Yep, true.
So that's pretty interesting. So let's talk a little bit about Kalupapa. I probably butchered that.
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand what you said. Could you repeat that?
Kalupapa.
Is that in Hawaii? Is that in Hawaii?
Oh,
Yeah,
the leprosy. Is that the leprosy?
Yeah,
that's the
that's the
leprosy one. Yeah.
And that one piqued my interest.
Yeah, me too.
No, I don't know. That probably has to do with that island specific, and I know some of that
Okay.
has a national park. The leprosy part. There is a national. I guess that is the national monument. I believe that is where it used to be, where all the leprosy people were,
Yeah.
dumped.
Brandished
know.
too, yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
right. Yeah, I've heard about
I
this.
do not know
Yeah.
the answer to that, but that's interesting. I'm going to look that up.
Yeah, so I thought, man, that would be a really good one
Yeah.
right there. I
Yeah.
wonder if they know anything about that. So
Yeah,
I
we
don't
like to
know,
try to
but-
stump
but
our
there's not much
guests.
to hunt, I don't think, in Hawaii. Like, there's chickens on
well,
the
I'm
island
not-
of Kauai everywhere.
I'm not so sure about that because we met a pretty great couple from Hawaii out at
the ATA.
St. Louis this year at the ATA, and they really don't have seasons because most of their stuff are non-native species.
Right.
So,
Oh, yeah.
So
so
that's
he was talking about how they have axis deer. You can kill unlimited amounts of axis deer.
yeah, they're like coyotes here. You can kill them all the time.
Aren't those like really
Yeah.
small? Like
They're really
Well,
good to eat.
Okay.
are they?
Well, I'm corrected then.
So that's
But yeah, it was because I was under that same kind of assumption that Hawaii is a waterlogged state.
Right.
How do they have that much wildlife? But
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
apparently
you're
they
right.
have
There's a
quite
lot
bit.
of invasive stuff. Maybe somewhere in there. Are there hogs on one island? I'm not sure.
there is.
Hogs are everywhere, so I
Yeah.
guess
Oh,
they
yeah.
Yeah.
are.
It's
They
true.
probably swam all the way
They
out there.
they said that
Yeah.
everything that is there was pretty much brought there except for
Yeah.
the the Axis, Dan?
No, the axis were
No,
brought there.
I think he said that because that's a Southeast Asia.
Yes.
Oh, maybe
species.
it was the black deer or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was the black deer.
There's only one species of deer that's native to there, and then about everything else that he talks about was brought in there. So,
Yeah.
but that park that we were talking about, it's on Molokai, Hawaii. That's where it's at.
Well,
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't speak Hawaiian or I can't do none of that. So,
yeah.
when
Some
it
of that
comes to
stuff-
pronouncing those,
Some of that
things,
stuff's just like, winging a prayer, man. Just throw it out there, see what
Yeah.
happens. Yeah.
yeah, just kind of spell it out as you go.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was at. Thanks, Mike.
Yep. I know. So Mississippi River and the recreation area there. Hunting is not permitted on small portion of the Mississippi River and recreation area owned by the NPS due to safety concerns. National
Okay, so
Park Service.
hunting in the National Park Service. Now there are just a few parks or national recreation areas that do allow hunting, I can't speak to this one specifically, but it has to be put in their legislation. So whenever it was first became a park, Congress signed it into law. Or in the case of monuments,
Yes.
the president just declares it. Okay, so it has to be put into that legislation. So like Grand Tetons, for example, right next to Yellowstone, they allow hunting, but it has to have a purpose. And so their purpose, they say in their legislation, was to work with local, like state fishing game, to cull the herd of elk only. And so people have to get special permits. And so if there's no hunting, if there's hunting in some portions of that recreation area in Mississippi, it was put into their legislation.
Okay, gotcha.
But now, at any time, they could close that. So the superintendent has that authority to put it in his compendium to no, we cannot allow that.
I believe we have a similar case of that here with our New River Gorge National Park, where there was a lot of different land there that they wanted to be able to still hunt. So there was some legislation that went in about that as well.
Yeah, I think that some of that's deal making too. Like we wanted to be a national park, and they're like,
it is
okay, but we want this, a little bit. So,
Yep, sure is.
So
don't ask us about this next one. I can't believe. Go ahead and say it.
I know. I saw that too.
This one really
crazy.
piqued my interest. Do you guys not know anything about that then?
No, I've never.
No.
All right. Well, I guess we could leave it alone.
Well,
I think it's still a good topic, though, to hear what their suggestions and opinions are about it.
You know more than we do.
So apparently, there's no giving birth in the Saline Valley Hot Springs, Death Valley National Park.
Even for animals?
Well, I mean, within reason.
I wonder
those
what
poor
ranger
deer.
gets the job of patrolling that.
Yeah, wouldn't
exactly,
that be bad? Ma'am, excuse me, you're not allowed to give birth to your son here.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't think you'd really want to hike back in there if you're that far along anyhow, would you?
No, I wouldn't think so, especially not in Death Valley.
How did you even find that?
No
never
kidding.
popped up on the search that I would have
We
ever.
find some asinine information.
We
Oh,
do.
my gosh.
We do, but it makes it interesting,
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it.
I'm looking that up too for sure.
Okay, so let's get into the Halloween segment here. Let's talk about some of the craziest encounters and calls that you guys had. Now, you've Terry, you told me about a couple haunted places you all was in where you all had seen ghosts, and there were some actual pretty heinous murders that happened in some of your all's cases.
Well, we're talking about maybe a couple of different things, but as far as haunted stuff, because this is your Halloween edition, but National Park Service is full of haunted places.
Really?
And
Ooh,
my
this is
gosh,
getting
yes.
good.
In fact, if anybody listening wants to go, check us out, Crime Off the Grid. We're having a Halloween edition called the Spooky Hour on the 28th. And we're going to talk about a ton of National Park Service haunted stories, actual stories. But Yellowstone National Park has, Old Faithful Inn. If anybody's heard or have seen Old Faithful Inn, it's a humongous log building. And there are so many haunted stories out of there. Some of the more well-known is the Headless Bride.
Oh.
And it's the most famous ghost story in Yellowstone. It's about this wealthy heiress who married a servant instead of her arranged husband. She was found decapitated in the bathtub of the Old Faithful Inn in room one. Oh no, I forgot the room number, but it back in 1915. And so people still say she walks the halls of the hotel at night with her head tucked under her arm.
Oh,
People
you're
do say
kidding?
that.
No, that's crazy. That's
but
almost.
I've talked to people who will say that they have been gently pushed. They'll turn around and nobody's there.
No
and that's
kidding.
probably one of the most common ones I hear. And then another, a lot of people say there's this little boy, and I've heard this several times, that appears among people that are waiting for Old Faithful geyser to go off, and they see this little boy who says he's lost. Can you help me find my mom? And they're like, turn around to go, hey, let's, just a second and I'll help you. And then he's gone.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
but those are two of the most famous ones. And then I don't know how much time you have, and I could share one of my stories, but it might take a little bit.
No, let's
longer
go.
when my
Share it.
Okay, all right. Well, when I was working at Old Faithful, it turned out it was in the fall. It was this time of year and everything was closed down, as far as the Old Faithful Inn was closed. In fact, they were doing construction so that all the fire, like it's a bunch of pickup sticks, that big log building. And so they had the fire suppression was all cut off from it because they were doing work on it. So they were hiring these fire guards to, at night, walk and kind of basically patrol because, to report a fire, just because if a fire started there, I mean, it was going to be over. So they had to have some kind of fire watch. And so this one gal who was doing the fire watch, she was 20 years old and scared to death. She would show me these pictures she would take. She tried to act like she wasn't scared. And she's like, here's these pictures. And in the corner of all the pictures, they were orbs. She said, that's the first time I learned about an orb. So I don't look that up. An orb
what is that?
Like a ball or a ghostly light,
Really?
that appears and then it maybe turns into a ghost or whatever. Yeah. So she's literally on her camera. I thought, oh, that's just a speck. No, it was in different places. Okay. And then she was also one who, I'm sorry to be confusing, but they shut everything off. The power was shut off except for emergency lighting. Elevators were completely shut down and locked open. So the elevators, everybody reports this. If you go in and when off-season, elevators go on and off, open, close, open, close, open, close. So anyway, she was scared to death, so she really wasn't doing her job. She went out and stayed in her car, kind of shivering at night to, and then she would kind of go in. She would get somebody who worked for the concessions operations. They have their own little security folks who work through the night, and she would wait for this guy to come with her, and then they would do rounds together. So they went through the section of what's called the old house. It's the original building. And they'd go down to the first floor. They would check, open doors, open bathrooms, just making sure, just whatever they were checking. Going through, they went upstairs to the third floor. And then they heard this, sounded like an electrical fire. So they go back downstairs and they're like, now they hear a fan going on. Like, in these public bathrooms, there's a big fan above the bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
They're the industrial fan.
Your exhaust fans.
That had been off because they had checked it. They come back down. It was on, and there was smoke. So they climbed up this little secret room, and the big motor was on fire, but the switch was off.
Oh, my God.
And so that's when I got called. And it's 3 a.m. and my dispatch calls and it's like, Tara, there's a fire at the Old Faithful Inn. I'm like, oh crap. I was the only one around. And she's like, should we call Page Elk Fire? And I'm like, that's just me. I'm the only one here. But she goes, okay, supposedly it's off. So I get to the inn, and in my brain at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm like going, okay, is this a ghost playing a trick on me? What am I going to find when I get to the inn? I went to the big room where met them where the elevators were, and they call that the rotunda. Anyway, so sure enough, I climbed up there. That switch was off, and the fire just went out. And so I'm convinced. So of course I go look this up. I'm convinced it was a poltergeist that was playing tricks. Supposedly.
Sure.
that's who's. There's a thing with fire.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm saying? Like there is a thing with fire. And earlier that year, we did have a fire that nobody knows how it started on the deck of the Old Faithful Inn. Just nobody knows. So I'm like, that was a weird thing. That's not the greatest ghost story, but I really think there was some kind of phenomenon, something that's created that fire after everything else that had been going on.
Oh, absolutely. Sure. That's awesome.
My stories, but listen to us on our Crime Off the Grid podcast because
I'll be tuning into that one.
You do for sure. I listened to which one did it was the
Blue Ridge Parkway.
The last one I just listened to was the Cannibal.
Oh, yes.
Which
That
one was
was-
it?
The Cannibal.
Oh
that
my
one-
gosh.
That one really piqued my interest. I seen that. I'm like, I got to listen to this one now. So,
And then that's not a ghost story, but then there was the Joker. Did you listen to the Joker?
I have not.
Go listen to the Joker.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then we're done with this.
Okay.
But Nancy has a ghost story, I think.
All right, Nancy, let's hear yours.
Well,
Oh,
so
wait a
I
minute,
worked at
wait a
Mount
minute.
Rushmore.
Dave had a
And-
question. You good?
No, I'll ask my question when she's done.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so when I was at Mount Rushmore, and it took 14 years to build the faces of Mount Rushmore, and nobody got killed in the time that in the 14 years that they were building this. But there is a
wow.
museum there, and you go down on patrol, and so I was one of the supervisors, but my employees would go down on patrol, and they'd go to the museum, which is a sculptor's museum, and they turn off all the lights, after the hours, turn off all the lights, lock the doors, just make sure everybody's out of the building as far as the public. So then they go back out on patrol, and one of the gals went down there just making a drive through or whatever, and there were some lights on in the museum. And she's like, well, now that's weird, because she's the one that turned all the lights off. And you can tell that they're all off, because when you drive away, you're looking right at the building. So all the lights are off. So she gets there, and there's a light on. And then when she goes and puts her key in the door to go in to check on that, she heard another door slam shut.
Oh, wow.
And so she's like, doesn't go inside. She turns around. She's like, no way, no how. And she leaves. And then another employee went down there, and I've heard them tell me that they heard chains rattling, because we'd have a chain around the door,
Okay.
and they heard the chain rattling on the door from the inside.
Oh, God.
And so it's just, but they say that there's a cemetery in Keystone, which is right next to Mount Rushmore. And from the cemetery, you can actually see the four heads. And so they say that the ghosts will periodically come into the museum just to make sure that the Park Service is doing things right and that things are the way they're supposed to be. And it's like, oh my gosh.
They're
So,
making sure you guys
that
are
is
in check.
definitely
Yeah.
a haunted building in that part.
They're like, y'all better be doing your job.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. We had an employee that she was law enforcement, and she was done. She quit. She's like,
Oh,
man,
wow.
I cannot do this.
Can't deal
So
with
yeah, she quit law enforcement.
it. Wow.
She just didn't have her inner Sam and Dean.
I guess. I mean, she still worked for the park, but it's
That's
just she
kinda
got
crazy.
out of law enforcement. Said, okay, I didn't sign up for this.
She
I mean,
was cool.
people don't quit for something they make up in their head.
No.
I mean,
Right.
It
I mean,
dealt with her pretty bad, obviously.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's kind of crazy. So
it is.
So here's my question. All right, you guys are under oath, right? and all my fans, all my fans are wanting me to ask you this. Have you
What
had
fans?
any
Wait a minute.
encounters?
Hold up. What fans do you have, Dave?
Dan,
Let him have his little minute.
come on, Dan.
Okay, I'll give it to him.
Have you ever had any encounters or seen Bigfoot?
Oh!
Yes.
Yes!
That.
I knew it was coming somewhere.
Yep.
Oh,
You're under oath.
I don't know if we should say. I don't know if we should say.
Oh!
Oh my gosh!
Well,
All right, ladies, come on. Let's hear it.
He took you dancing, didn't he?
He stepped all over your feet.
Oh, gosh.
I am a Bigfoot fan.
Me too.
I would love to see Bigfoot. I'm all into it, but no, I have never seen a Bigfoot. Now,
Okay.
I guess I could ask my husband. He spent his entire career deep in the backcountry, but I have not. I'm so sorry to bust your bubble.
And I have not seen Bigfoot either. But,
Oh.
we've remember Tara at Madison when wasn't someone running through the trees wearing a Bigfoot costume?
Oh, that's true. Somebody
That's
has
where I was going to ask. Have you had a lot of calls about it?
Yes.
We
yeah.
have, yes.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sure you've had a lot.
It
of calls
took a
about
few
it.
days to catch that guy, but finally.
Seriously, in a
Yeah,
few days?
but you know
Caught.
what? I just learned what a Wendigo is, and I'm convinced that there's some things have happened maybe that involve a Wendigo. So,
Oh yeah.
that's my
yeah.
new thing.
I
I'm gonna
think
go
so.
in search of that.
Hey Dan.
Like Skinwalker
I'm going
Ranch.
to break up with Bigfoot and go with the Wendigo.
Yeah,
There you
yeah,
go.
yeah.
I know. I like it. Wendigo's almost more believable.
Well, yeah.
Right. See, I think so too. Yeah.
But Dan, do you remember that? I just recently sent you this video where that guy and his son is in the woods hunting. They're in the tree stand.
Oh
And-
well, yeah. You sent me that like 3 days after I seen it. But yes,
the scream of that, and they was like, "Oh yeah, this is definitely a Bigfoot." Have you guys ever heard, like, on your all's calls or being out doing patrol or something like that? You ever heard any unusual screams that's definitely is not an animal?
Well, you also got to think though, a mountain lion sounds heinous.
It does.
Yeah.
They
It's-
are
true.
scary.
It can sound scary.
Well,
Yep.
you know what my husband always said. He was more afraid. This is what his big horror story would have been. Being in the backcountry, they have these backcountry patrol cabins that are all historic, basically from back in the day. And
Yeah.
so rangers, they go out so they can stay in these areas longer, to stay in these cabins. And so he would always tell me that his biggest fear was to look at the window and see this old lady's face looking right through the window.
Oh yeah.
wow.
Oh my gosh, that
That
would
was
be.
his biggest fear.
Yeah, because I mean,
wanted
you
to
just think of the people that used to live in those homes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Man,
That's crazy.
All right, ladies. Well, it's been a pleasure having you guys on. So, I mean, this has just been so interesting hearing all your all stories and your all's experience. I mean, thank you all for your service in our national park system, and it was just an honor.
Well,
Well,
yeah,
I
thanks.
appreciate y'all too.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us.
Yes.
Absolutely mention your guys' podcast again so
Yeah,
our
just-
listeners can jump on and listen to some of your stuff.
Yep, sure can.
Well, sure. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We're not in on those other places because we're not smart enough to do those other things. Instagram and Facebook is about what we can handle. But yeah, follow us. Thank you so much.
Yep.
So, yeah, crime off the grid. Take a look
Crime Off the
or
Grid.
listen.
Yeah, and they air their podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and all the same networks that we do ours on as well.
When do you guys normally air one of your episodes?
They come out on Monday.
Mondays? Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right. Well, guys, we appreciate it. Thanks again, and you all
All right.
have a great evening.
All right, you
Have a
too.
great night.
All
Okay.
right. Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much. All right, guys, be sure to check us out on Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast. And we're also on YouTube now, so be sure to check us out there. The YouTube page is growing more and more every day. So we reached 695 people in the last 7 days, new people. So 695 people new came in, watched our stuff, and hopefully they keep coming back. So it just keeps growing. So thanks for the shares, thanks for the likes, thanks for the follows, and thanks for the listens. We sure appreciate it. Hope you guys
Yeah, we do
enjoyed this
appreciate
evening.
everybody.
Yep, we sure do. Hope everybody enjoyed this evening, and thanks again, Dan. We sure appreciate you coming in,
Always.
and we sure appreciate Dave being here.
Yeah, we do. We absolutely appreciate Dave.
We absolutely appreciate you.
You had to go there.
Had to go there.
Had to.
Yeah.
Had to go there.
All right,
Even
guys.
though he was rusty and messed up a little bit first thing, but hey.
Yep. And late. But anyways.
We won't get into all of that.
I know. It's all good. We love him.
Love you, Dave.
Love you too, Dan.
All right, guys. Y'all have a good
In
evening.
love with you.
Thanks for listening. Are you looking for that European or craft beer culture? Breathe Wine and Culture Company, where your wine and craft beer culture thrives. Located in downtown Huntington, West Virginia, the Breathe Wine and Culture Company offers over 150 types of craft beer, extensive wine choices, thoughtful gifts, and even grab-and-go food options as well as specialized catering. Shop local, shop small for a unique experience. You can check them out on their Facebook page or give them a call today at 304-823-4577. Breathe Wine and Culture Company, 304-823-4577.